tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
So J.D. Vance went on, Trump made the big mistake of, instead of just talking about immigration and Haitian immigrants and what dropping 20,000 Haitian immigrants into a city of 60,000 people in the Midwest would do. It'd cause problems. That's not the Haitian immigrants' fault. It's our imperialism fault, right? And what we're doing to Haiti. But J.D. Vance decided to go. And so Trump, like a guy who looks like he wants to lose an election, runs around talking about Haitians eating cats and dogs instead of talking about the actual problem, which is a winning issue for him. He can't help but F it up. So J.D. Vance went on TV on Sunday and all different shows to talk about it, try to defend them talking about cats and dogs being eaten instead of about the real problem. And then he went online. He went on Twitter and watch this. I had an interaction, but watch this. He says, if you were to ask what caused me to change my tune about President Trump from 2016 to 2020, I would give you a few reasons, but what we're seeing in Springfield really drives it home. He's talking about Springfield, Ohio. Now, he's from Ohio. Housing costs have skyrocketed, communicable diseases on the rise, car accidents, crime, and insurance premiums moving up. Citizens complaining for months or longer and mostly ignored. Okay, again, that's not the fault of the Haitians, okay? But it's not just what's happening. It's the way our leadership responds to it. Now he's getting closer. He's getting closer because what the manufacturing base wants is cheap fucking labor. That's why they brought those Haitians to Springfield, Ohio, for the cheap labor, so they could pay them less than they would pay Americans. Because
insourcing.
That's it. Yes, that's what this is. So instead of sending the jobs to Haiti, they just wreck Haiti and then bring the desperate people here to work for substandard wages. That's what's happening. Okay.
And the businesses get money to hire the migrants that you didn't vote to make legal. Remember Purdue Chicken fired all their employees and hired cheap amnesty people because they were getting funded by the government to do it.
That's right. So back to this. It's the way the leadership responds to it. Confronted with many of their citizens begging for relief, our broken elites offer only scorn. He's right about that, and he gets it half right. It is racist, they tell us, to get angry at being unable to afford a home or to complain about being... Again, quit blaming the people with no money and no power. If you find yourself not able to afford a home and you're blaming someone lower on the economic ladder than you, pretty good chance you're being manipulated by someone higher on the economic ladder than you, okay? This is the classic, let's get poor workers to hate on even poorer, more desperate people. And that's what J.D. Vance is playing into. It is racist, they tell us, to get angry at being unable to afford a home or to complain about being unable to drive a car safely down the streets paved by your neighbors. Or to call 911 because strangers are slaughtering geese in a public park. They have ignored this town's problems for years. Now they pay attention, not to focus their considerable wealth and power on helping their fellow citizens, but to use their platform as a weapon against those who dare to notice that their lives have gotten worse. So again, he gets it half right, but he's blaming... He then says, they are here legally, they tell us. Yes, they are here legally because Kamala Harris granted temporary protective status to 100,000 Haitians. But Kamala Harris waving the magic amnesty wand is not a justification for the presence of 20,000 newcomers in Springfield. It is an indictment of her despicable open vote. So he's getting closer to blaming the right people. Because if you were a desperate Haitian whose country has been screwed over by the United States imperialism for over 100 years, you would come here too. So it's not the Haitians' fault that corporations and that Kamala Harris is flooding the country with more desperate, poorer people. So it's Kamala Harris. It's not there. It's Kamala. So he's getting closer. Nothing justifies violence or the threat of violence levied against Springfield or its residents. We condemn both, but the existence of threats doesn't justify silencing those who wish to petition their leadership for a better life. There is no heckler's veto in our country. Donald Trump was shot in the head, and yet they still call him a threat to democracy. No heckler's vetoes in this country. We'll try working the humor hole in Waukegan on a Friday night. Am I right? Anyway. So here, I just want to, he says, yes, it is Kamala Harris who is a threat to democracy. It is Kamala Harris who would rather import new voters than persuade the ones who are already here. He's so close to getting it right. It is Kamala Harris who would rather ignore the citizens of Springfield than undo the policies that hurt them. It is Kamala Harris who would rather censor her fellow Americans than listen to them. What we are seeing from Kamala Harris and her enablers in the media is disgusting. And there is only one person who has consistently stood up to Kamala Harris and the entire corrupt system she represents. So he's closer. There's its corrupt system. It's the corrupt system. So don't hate on the immigrant who we made desperate with our imperialism. There is only one person who has consistently fought for the people Kamala Harris laps or ignores. That's Donald Trump. Okay, so then this guy, Zayed Jelani, he says Springfield was declining for years until they saw an increase in jobs and growth driven by people moving in. That means more wealth, healthier budgets, etc. Are there no upsides to immigration in your view? What about Usha's parents? Should they have stayed in India? He's talking about his wife.
Did she come with the 20,000 mass bomb migration from Washington people who wouldn't allow them in Martha's Vineyard? Do you recall when they bused the people to the places where the Democrats lived?
And when they said,
this is like, we can't absorb this.
We don't have the infrastructure to help these people. We have to ship them out of Martha's Vineyard. What about all the benefits that immigrants provide?
Yeah. No, there's upsides, of course, just not for the residents of Springfield.
So
it's for the conglomerate. Unbelievable.
So JD Vance responds.
Oh, he's saying what I said. He just said what I said.
He says, dude, I've always liked you, so maybe this should be a longer conversation. But come on, are there no upsides to immigration? Is a radically different question from should we drop 20,000 people from a radically different culture in a small Ohio town in a matter of a few years? Again, he's getting it. He's correct on that. He's getting it half right.
Yeah, that part's 100% right.
First of all, remember that I've been on this issue for months, well before it became viral. You have actual leftists who will say, look, housing prices have gone up. It's great for the local residents. What about the people who don't own homes? What about the grandparents who do own homes but would like their kids to have a chance to buy a home? Look at the number of Medicaid recipients who are newcomers. Do you not think that stresses the local hospital system? I have constituents who say they've lost their jobs or been told they won't be getting a raise because new migrants are willing to work for cheap. He's so close to getting it right. He just won't tell you the whole truth. There are homeless people who can't get homes. Look at the numbers of ESL students in a small school district increasing over threefold to nearly 1,000 kids. Do you think it affects the quality of the education for locals when their schools are flooded with a bunch of people who don't speak the language? I could go on and on. Again, a longer conversation, but I don't know why your automatic assumption is that the only reason people are complaining about this is that they have bad motivations. And I cannot stand the condescension directed at all these people who, on the record, are giving very specific testimonials about how their lives were made worse. So here's what I say back to that. I say the part you're leaving out is those Haitian refugees are created by the oligarchs, the same oligarchs that fund J.D. Vance, Western economic hitmen, and imperialism. So that's the part he won't ever tell you. He won't ever tell you that. He'll blame his political opponent. He'll even mention a corrupt system, but he won't tell you what that system actually is. They love to see workers, the oligarchs, Western economic hitmen, imperialists, they love to see workers turn on even poorer, more desperate people instead of turning their attention on the people who created those refugees in the first fucking place. Kamala Harris is busy creating more Haitian refugees as people lash out at their neighbors instead of the oligarchs who are creating them. You should point this out, J.D. Vance. Trump and you would be doing a service if you pointed out what the root cause of the problem is instead of focusing on the result, which makes people turn on the desperate refugees U.S. economic hitmen and imperialism has created. I haven't heard him or Trump ever, or the news media, by the way, talk about why there's 20,000 Haitians in a town of 60,000 people in the middle of Ohio. Well, here's one of the reasons that they won't ever tell you about. Don't believe for a second the Democratic Party gives an F about Haitians any more than Trump. This was Hillary and Obama's administration. Biden said the U.S. empire wouldn't care if all of Haiti sank into the ocean. Unsurprising statement considering his nickname is Genocide Joe. So when the minimum wage in Haiti was raised to 61 cents an hour, Hillary Clinton's State Department intervened on behalf of American garment manufacturers and had it cut in half to 31 cents. So don't believe for a second that Kamala Harris or the Democrats give a shit about poor Haitians. They're the ones creating the poor Haitians and making them desperate enough to move to someone else's other country to find work and affordable housing. Here's a little bit more. In 1914, the U.S. military, how long has this been going on, Jim? In 1914, the U.S. unilaterally seized the entirety of Haitians' gold reserves and transported the gold directly to the vault of a Wall Street bank. The next year, it invaded Haiti and occupied it for 20 years.
And now we're giving them your job.
And now we can screw over Americans by giving those desperate people your job for a wage lower than you'll take. Here's another one. On this day in 1915, U.S. Marines invaded Haiti, beginning a brutal 19-year occupation which killed 15,000 and returned slavery to the island.
Finally.
The Americans looted Haiti's wealth, stole 100,000 of acres of land, and secured harsh control over the country for U.S. business interests. That's called economic hitmen. That's what... Go ahead.
Remember when Laura Silsby tried to traffic 30 kids out of the country and Bill Clinton went and made sure to get her out of jail?
Yep.
And it was just a mistake. She didn't do the paperwork, but it was her second trip. So she actually got some kids out the first trip.
And so now that Haiti, which we've reported, the people on the street level are starting to organize themselves and come together. The capitalist and the economic hitman can't have that. Again, this is the part of the story Trump and J.D. Vance will never tell you. And so they're coming together. And they're getting rid of the puppet government that's a puppet of the United States. Well, the United States can't have that. So what is the United States doing? The Biden administration overrides the GOP and authorizes $109 million to pay Kenyans to come do imperialism in Haiti. So they're going to...
seems lower, Jimmy, than they pay other people, by the way.
Yes, that's right. So
it seems a bit lower.
So we have a stranglehold on Kenya, and so we got Kenya to go there to do our dirty work. And what they're doing there is to suppress and oppress and tamp down the uprising of the people who are actually coming together in Haiti. And who's funding that? The United States. So we can make sure that the Haitians stay poor and desperate. And that's what's happening. Exclusive, U.S. seeks to turn Kenyan mission in Haiti into a UN peacekeeping operation. Meaning making sure we can keep control with a puppet government, and so that the people of Haiti never, ever get out from underneath the boot of U.S. imperialism. This is the story that J.D. Vance won't tell you. They want to make it about the immigrants are the problem and Kamala Harris, instead of the people who pull Kamala Harris's strings and tell her and Joe Biden what to do, which is the billionaire class, the same billionaire class that funds J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. They'll never tell you this. That's why Donald Trump wanted to overthrow the government of Venezuela so we could steal their oil, except Trump is such a political novice, he says that quiet part out loud.
Hey, wait, Jimmy, Venezuela's another place we're being flooded with immigrants by.
That's another place we're being flooded with immigrants by, Venezuela, who Trump put sanctions on to make it such a hard time to live there that people would flee there or overthrow their government.
So the hardest programming to break is a bunch of people, even when they see how fucked everything is, to make them understand that, no, actually, America's not a force for good in the world.
That's right. Like Stephen Colbert says.
Oh, I've heard it from at least 5 to 10 people. So that's a parrot idiot mind control phrase as far as I'm concerned. If you say, I believe America is a force for good, no, you are a moron. You have never read any history. Because we're not.
And this is happening right now. That's a headline from September 4th of this year. That's happening right now. We are invading Haiti so we can suppress their people in their uprising, their populist uprising, and keep our puppet in power or install a new one that serves the imperialists and the economic hitmen. Here's what Dan Cohen says. There's no doubt that suddenly importing tens of thousands of foreigners into a small town will have dramatic consequences and engender resentment from the residents. But pretending this starts at the border is naive at best and disingenuous. Permanent Washington has long meddled in Haiti's affairs via invasions, occupations, multiple coups, and is now engineering another military occupation of Haiti with hundreds of millions of American tax dollars.
Yeah, you pay for it.
And by the way, no one will tell you this. PBS, CBS, New York Times, they won't tell you this. If we'd stop destabilizing countries under the guise of democracy promotion, then we wouldn't have these immigration crises in the first place. Will you pledge, if elected, to abandon the Biden administration's policy of meddling in Haitian affairs? Well, of course he won't. J.D. Vance won't address that. But
JD, ask Peter Thiel if it's okay.
Ask Peter Thiel.
Peter, can we stop doing that?
Peter Thiel, who has PALANTIR. Look up what PALANTIR is. Anya Parampel, who wrote a book about Venezuela and was our guest on the show, she says, same thing with Venezuelans, Hondurans, Syrians, and any other minority group that has migrated here in recent years. It always begins with our government's crimes abroad. Then our media and politicians use the problems they created to divide us and call us racist and xenophobic. This cycle can only stop when this truth is spoken and addressed. So J.D. Vance will not speak that truth, so this cycle will not stop. So I know I have a lot of people who watch this show who are J.D. Vance and Trump fans, and I will work with them on anything that I agree with them on, and closing the border is one of them. But the bigger problem is to stop creating desperate migrants and stop screwing up other people's countries that make them
spreading democracy. No more spreading democracy.
No more spreading democracy.
Mind your business.
So when you see something called the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, that's the CIA we're doing the bidding of the economic hitmen, meaning the corporations who want to go in and exploit a country, and that they're not spreading democracy. What they're spreading is imperialism and oppressing the people and stealing their natural resources. That's what
they're doing it to you. They're doing it to people here.
And now they're doing it to you.
They're not doing it to other people?
So now they're screwing you out of good jobs by making those people who they just made desperate and bringing them here to take your jobs.
It's a great system. It's a really...
So that's the part...
It's almost like an ecosystem.
That's the part of the story. So J.D. Vance and Trump get it half right. But the biggest part of that story, they leave out. Why? Because they work for those economic hitmen. Trump bragged about it, how he wanted to steal the oil in Venezuela because Venezuela wanted to keep it for themselves. They didn't want to give it to ExxonMobil. They didn't want to give it to Shell Oil or BP. And that's why we're doing everything we're doing to Venezuela. And that's why we're doing everything we're doing to Haiti. And that no matter, or Syria. Right now, we're occupying a third of Syria. Which third? The oil part. So again, all those, most of those refugees in Western Europe, we did it in Iraq. We did it in Libya. We did it in Syria. We're the ones creating those refugees, just like we created the Haitian refugees, just like we created the Venezuelan refugees. And that's the part the corporate media won't tell you because they're owned by the people who did it, just like J.D. Vance is owned by the people who did it. Well, he's funded by them. Same thing with the corporate media. And so you have to come to a show like this to get the other side of the story. So if you get a chance to talk to J.D. Vance or Trump, you should bring this up. Because if I get a chance to talk to them, this is exactly what I'll bring up. But instead, they want to talk about geese and they want to talk about cats and dogs instead of the real problem. Okay, over to stuff.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm just going to add coconut oil. I've become allergic to dairy and coconut products. I've become a staple.
Coconut oil is also good.
That's Salvius trifon. Salvius trifon. I lost 25 pounds in 3 months, unable to digest. Nutritionist connected neuropathy and allergies. Extreme elimination diet and weight came back. Lifelong body pain went away. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Salvius. I was born with a birth defect and had some lingering symptoms from it. Western doctors told me I just have to live with it. Went to a naturopath, and everything has changed. My life is 100% better. We are not flies. That's good to hear. Thomas Gray, data point, I was on Ozempic for a couple of weeks. It made me sick, so I stopped taking it. Thomas Gray. Great show. Please interview Dr. Ken Berry, a contemporary of Means. He's starting the American Diabetes Society to counter the corrupt ADA. Thank you. Fully laden swallow. Thank you. All right. Let's go here. Not banned account. Why did Taylor Swift do this to Trump yesterday? Not a banned account. Thank you. All right. I lost 25 pounds in 3 months, unable to digest. Oh, I read that one. That's from Salvius Typhon. Thank you. Data point. Oh, I read that one. Thomas Gray. Thank you. Money isn't the root of all evil. It's the people that control it. Every single major global issue and most national issues can be traced back to the banks as its roots. Watch the Money Masters on YouTube. Solidus, thank you for the recommendation. I will watch Money Masters. Let's work with Zionists. Sepultura. Thank you. Saying Jimmy Dore said that. All right. The real pandemic is scapegoating of the vulnerable little guy instead of holding power accountable. This comes from the cycle of child abuse where we take out on our children what our parents did to us. Hannah, sir. Thank you, Hannah, sir. Migrant in my city, Rochester, New York, arrested for killing a family of 4 and setting the home on fire to cover up his crimes. AJ, that's tragic. Hollow, the Haitians would love to eat Jen Psaki's. Whoa! Thank you for that, Hollow. My hero often says, I will work with anyone for good and no one to do evil. Jill Stein is the only one outright anti-genocide. Healthcare for all. Sure, she's pro-food. Please talk to her, even if offline. Emma! Thank you, Emma, for that. Emma, she can DM Jimmy directly and has in the past. So I think that's a good recommendation. Greta Thunberg named Anti-Semite of the Week for attending a pro-Palestine protest. AJ. Really? Trump is without class and crass and no compassion, as MSNBC is without class and crass and no compassion for Trump facing assassination attempts. Pretty soon, they will have assassination double headers. Thomas.
Okay.
Back to Jimmy.